Mr. Producer?
Hello, America. I'm Marx Levin, and this
That's unfortunate.
is Life, Liberty, and Levin. We have
No, it isn't. It's a little set left over from Mr. Rogers.
some great guests tonight, but before we go to them, I want to talk to you.
Uh-oh. All right. Here's the big, we're going to get a big talking to.
I was thinking about this before the show. Do you realize we have, in many respects, less liberty today than we did before the Revolutionary War?
Yeah, it's true. You know, I technically speaking, people lost in the woods have a lot of freedom. You know, if they murder somebody, they could set a big fire. They could just they don't have to obey like limits on hunting because they're lost. They were a lot more free then than when they had to go back into the city and face manslaughter charges.
Look at taxation.
Yes, look at taxation. Yeah, also look at roads and trains and airplanes.
Look at taxation.
Look at the CDC, the NIH, a standing army, the biggest in the world by a factor of 6.
It's a disaster. Think about it prior to the Revolutionary War.
Yeah, prior to the Revolutionary War, weren't roads so much better? Remember when wheels were made out of wood? Wasn't that better?
Look at representation. Do we have representation today?
Yes, you do. I mean, you don't. You have less because your party fucked up and lost.
Have you even tried to meet your member of Congress lately?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's not hard. I mean, they've got a limited time and 150,000 people or so to, that they service. So they, obviously it's time's limited. And they're doing a lot of work, by the way. So I wouldn't expect them to, in the middle of like a committee meeting or a breakdown of the budget or something, to take time out to glad hand with an asshole like me. I mean, come on.
It's impossible.
No, it isn't. It's difficult. It's time-consuming, but it's not impossible.
And if you do meet your representative, what are you going to tell them?
Well, why do I have to worry about it? It's fucking impossible. Yeah. If I grow wings and fly to the moon, what am I going to... Will I burn up on re-entry?
They're passing 2,700 pages of omnibus spending bills.
Right, which largely are continuing payments to stuff that we've already agreed on and they've gone through, and then additions of stuff that they've broken down in committee, and then they have people that they put on those boards to go through all that stuff, and then they go to their conferences and they tell everybody what's in them, and everybody goes, what about this little piece? And they go, yeah, we covered that, with it's in the language here, this reflects directly to the tax code, but the rest of it is in here. Stop pretending like 2,700 fucking pages on a country this big. We have 340 million fucking people. Of course it's a big budget. Nothing irks me more than the complaint that bills are too thick and nobody read them, gave them the once-over. They spend months in committee going over all the parts of it. Just because you don't watch it happen doesn't mean it isn't happening. God damn it, it's annoying.
And they're doing it in the middle of the night.
No, they're not. They're doing it all day, every day, stupid.
You have no idea what's in those bills.
You can ask, and they post them. I mean, the military stuff's a little murky. I don't know. I don't quite believe that a hammer costs $500, and I don't think it's a mistake. Hal, I want your shirt. It's adorable. Oh, thanks. It's a Streamlabs shirt. I use Streamlabs when it works.
That's less liberty than you had when we didn't have representation.
Yeah, but you also didn't have all the things the budget provides, like Social Security and highway system and FAA to make sure that these newfangled flying machines don't crash into each other and burn up the church.
Because what happens here is you get to vote.
Yeah, remember back when things were easier, like during the Donner Party?
Vote, but you don't get to know anything. And that's the great irony of what's taking place.
Yes, you do. You can look up any of this shit. Mm-hmm. Let's go for this year. Hi, dumb fuck. This is at gov.info. This is the budget of the U.S. government. It's available in PDF form. I'm sure they have a hardcover if you want to buy it. There's analytical perspectives. This is from last year. This is the budget for this year because it was put together in 2020. Donald J. Trump. That's his analytical perspective. I'm sure it's a page turner. There's an appendix, but let's say here you go. PDF. Let's see, how many pages? 138 pages. Budget for America's future. Here it is. See, this is the budget. This is what I'm building a better tomorrow. This is all preamble. This is how much that will go into each thing. Education, research. I don't know. This thing, and this is the breakdown. This is what they would like in their budget going forward. It's the actual one. Funding highlights to 2020. So you can look that up. Let's see. Let's go back to here. Go back to here. Let's see. Budget of the U.S. government. Here's USA.gov. Federal government's budget process. Congress will review larger. Here's the budget process, how it works. Show description. Let's see. Branches of the U.S. government. Stuff about the American flag. Okay, that's how it breaks down. Congressional Budget Office. Here's all the details that are in there. Effects of physical infrastructure spending on the economy and budget under 2 illustrative scenarios. They do a breakdown of that. Federal debt statutory limit, July 2021, if you want to look at that. Analysis certain proposals in the president's 2022 budget. This is Biden's budget that he's putting forward. This is their analysis from the Congressional Budget Office. What they think is possible, how much they have. Distribution of household income, 2018. Yeah. So here's Senate Amendment 2137 to H.R. 3684, the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act. That's the thing that's actually going to pass. Here's the whole thing. There it is. That's a lot of numbers. But where it's going is all in there. You know what they didn't have in 1776, Marx Levin? Fucking PDFs. You had to get some scrivener to scribe this shit out for you. And if he wrote out every line longhand, it had been bigger than this document. There it is. There's the whole thing. That's it. That's what I call freedom, dumb fuck. There's the whole thing. But tell me again how it's too much to read.
The Democrat Party has decided that it is going to take control of this country, and it is going to...
No, it didn't decide. The voters gave the Democratic Party control of the country by giving them control of the House, the Senate, and the presidency. You ostrich egg in glasses.
To take control of this society and every aspect of this culture.
Well, not every aspect, obviously. Just the fun parts.
And it's doing so, devouring one piece at a time. And we've reached a pinnacle now.
Uh-oh.
Where we either claw our way back or we're going to lose this country.
You never want to claw a pinnacle.
Is it too much to ask the
Yes, it is.
19 Republicans in the United States Senate who sold out at least half of the American people? Way? Mm-hmm. You look at the founders of this country. They really put their lives and their fortunes on the line. Oh,
yeah, that's the one thing that is a little different now, is that in 1776, it was a little different. Like now, you don't have to put your life on the line just to do a budget, in general.
All we ask them to do is vote the right way, and they can't do it, led by Mitch McConnell, the McConnell Republicans, all 19 of them.
Well, they're representing their constituents, which most of the time sided with Trump, but in a couple of areas are varying with him greatly, especially when it comes to expenditures in their districts and failing bridges, broken roads, lead pipes, shit like that. I mean, crime would go down 7% if you just replaced all the lead pipes in this country, but don't get me started.
30 did the right thing, but McConnell leads a minority of a minority, 19.
Well, no, it's a majority, actually, of people who voted for the actual bill.
And he helped grease the skids for what's going to be a massive expansion of already a massive welfare state. And most...
Yeah, terrible. I mean, it's all those fucking old people. If we just had more ice flows, right, Mark?
Most of our laws are not made by Congress. They're made by this massive welfare state. Unelected bureaucrats, millions of them.
Most of our laws are not made... What?
Who work in allegiance to and alliance with the Democrat Party. And I want to talk about that a little bit in my opening discussion with you.
Well, get at it. I mean, what the fuck are we waiting for?
And I want to turn to American Marxism.
Oh, your book, you mean? Let me guess. You have to bloviate and wander around this topic for a while with a lot of scary language to try and sell your book because it's dragging ass.
This book has sold 750,000 copies.
And just through the
It has
Heritage
received
Foundation.
no attention by the left.
Well, no, it's not that we don't pay attention to it. It's just, it's an insular group of, I mean, Trump had that many people showing up at his rallies. I don't give a shit. Hold on one second. What would we do? Let's see. Let's try this 1 second, if I might. Give me a second, Mark. If you could hold on for a second. Whoops. Let's see. Now, it sold a lot of. It has sold a lot. No, credit where credit is due. Mark, you have an audience. Fox News buys a bunch. Heritage Foundation buys a bunch. They pass them out at parties. You're in a lot of gift bags at places where people are in a hurry to leave. But you're not on the New York Times bestseller list. And to do that, you have to really, I mean, if you're going to talk about book sales, I think you need a book that really tells a story that reaches deep into people's souls. And let's see, number 8 on the New York Times bestseller. That's pretty good. Ideological, kind of sure, whatever, it doesn't know. Let's see, the authors take time to define a fart because it isn't a medical or scientific term. Oh, that's interesting. It's more of a colloquialism. As any guess expelled from the end of an animal opposite to its mouth, if it is audible or not. Well, yeah, I mean, SBD. The vast majority of animals do it. Yeah, it's romantic. Some of those animals range from red foxes, shut up, dummy, to termites and sharks. I guarantee red fox farted. Yeah. True or number 2, due to come out. They have another book, number 2. True or Poo, the definitive field guide to filthy animal facts and falsehoods. But the book is they sold more books than you did, Mark. American Marxism can't lift a lighter to an animal farts book. But please go on.
Purposely. It has received no attention by the Republican establishment.
It's no attention by the Republican establishment. I'm sorry, the choir doesn't want to be yelled at by the preacher?
Purposely. This book goes around both.
Yes, it's a reach around.
Aimed at you, the people of this country.
Yeah, if he'd have written American Fartism, he would have sold more books. That's clear.
The people who brought us the Reagan Revolution, the Tea Party Revolution.
The Reagan Revolution and the Tea Party Revolution, not the same folks.
The Gingrich Revolution.
The Gingrich Revolution was much closer to the Reagan Revolution, not the Tea Partiers, but there's a drift there.
And the Trump Revolution.
Definitely off the reservation.
This is aimed at Democrats and Republicans and everything in between.
So nobody wants to read you thinking they're shitty?
Aimed at black.
Listen, Mr. Reader, you're a fucking asshole. Let me tell you what else. You commie Marxist bastard.
And yellows and reds and whites, whatever your physical characteristics are of no consequence. If you love liberty...
I'm a big fan of liberty. I really do. I enjoy it. I even enjoy the libertine movement, if I do say so myself.
Love this country.
I do. I love this country a lot. More than you, obviously, because I think it's disgusting when Trump rubs his dick on the flag.
It is for you. And I'm beating the pots and pans because what's taking place
is no one's actually buying the book. It's just being sold by organizations like your own publisher is saying, is, you know, inflating the numbers.
It's going to be irreversible at some point. And it's going to be up to us to do something about it, each and every one of us, because you cannot rely on Mitch McConnell and that gang to do a damn thing right.
Well, I couldn't agree more, especially if you're a white Appalachian who's starving, dealing with lead pipes, living with coal toxins from West Virginia, and of course a bad educational system, and a baby bottle full of Mountain Dew.
Right. Here in part is what I say in American Marxism.
Yeah, dude, if I wanted to hear it, I'd read the book. If nobody's buying the book, it's because they don't give a fuck what's in it. So, what is this, story time?
American Marxism has adapted the language and allure of utopianism, which I wrote about at length in my book, Ameritopia.
Ameritopia.
It is tyranny disguised as a desirable, workable, and even paradisiacal governing ideology.
Paradisiacal governing ideology? No wonder you're not selling any fucking books to, like, I like this book a bunch, but what's this thing about it having a parasite? I don't understand. Is that, like, by the dashboard light?
There are unlimited utopian constructs, for the mind is capable of infinite fantasies. But there are common themes. The fantasies take the form of grand social plans and experiments, the impracticability and impossibility of which, in small ways and large, lead to the individual's subjugation. Indeed, the economic and cultural agenda driven by President Joe Biden and the Democrat Party provide ample examples.
Why are you playing pictures of Biden?
Of this ideology and behavior at work. They include massive deficit spending, confiscatory taxation, and the regulation of all things.
Confiscatory taxation. You're confiscating your money. The taxation is theft while still sounding like a Reaganite.
Large and small, drenched in Marxist class warfare propaganda, and a slew of executive orders claiming to end numerous historical and cultural injustices. So too does their demand.
I don't know that anybody thinks an executive order ends a cultural injustice. I think they kind of start the work on it. And by the way, I know it's your book and I know it's a physical book, but the words are on the fucking screen. Look at the camera.
And for absolute one-party control over the body politic through various extra-constitutional schemes and other means, as Marxism does not tolerate the competition of ideas or political parties.
Who gives, honest to God, this fixation with Marxism on their part because, like, some hyper-lefties dangle around with these ideas and want to fillet Richard Wolff every 6 weeks? We're talking about Joe Biden, for fuck's sake.
These efforts include changing the voting system to ensure Democratic Party control for decades.
Well, that would only be true if the majority of people want to vote for Democrats and everyone has the access to vote. The weird part is that you assholes are giving up on winning elections if everybody can vote. Think about that for a second. How shitty is your fucking party?
Which has as its purpose the eradication of the Republican Party and political competition.
Well, I mean, obviously, the Democratic Party is going to try and win as much as it wants. That's what winning's about. You participation ribbon snowflake.
Attempting to eliminate the Senate filibuster rule, so all...
Yeah, they're just going to empty the whole chamber. Wait, that's in Philadelphia.
All manner of laws can be imposed on the country without effective deliberation or challenge, threatening to breach separation of powers and judicial independence by plotting to pack the Supreme Court with like-minded ideologues.
But enough about Trump.
Planning to add Democratic seats to the Senate to ensure its control over that body.
Well, if Democrats, if the concern is that we're going to pack the court with ideologues, then are you watching what Merrick Garland is doing in the DOJ right now? He's not exactly beating down the door to arrest Trump. He's not acting as a stooge for the left. He's not going after stuff. He's slow walking quite a bit of stuff.
Using tens of billions, now trillions in taxpayer funds to subsidize and strengthen core parts of the Democratic Party base.
Oh, you mean keep poor people from starving to death. Got you.
And facilitating massive illegal immigration, the purpose of which is to, among other things, alter the nation's demographics and eventually add significantly to the pro-Democratic Party voting base.
Well, except a lot of these people are coming from socialist nations that they have learned to hate, and they're escaping. And they would have, in many ways, the same political views as like Russian Jews who escaped, who were pro-capitalism and still bore the scars of, you know, Stalinist-like regimes. So there's no guarantee. And plus, they're Catholic and pro-life, most of them. So the Republicans would actually have a genuine shot at most South American immigrants coming across and turning them into Republican voters, except they don't want the brown people.
These actions and designs, among others, are evidence of an autocratic, power-hungry...
You got paid by the word, didn't you?
...ideological movement that rejects political and traditional comedy and seeks to...
Comedy, that's where people, act in deference to each other and are polite, not comedy, which is what I do.
...permanently crush its opposition and emerge as the sole political and governing power.
That says governmental. I mean, it's your book, fuck it. Do a rewrite live.
The latter explains the true motivation...
That's a good idea. Take the words off the screen, otherwise I will critique all of them.
...of the obsessive and unremitting war against the candidacy and then presidency of Donald Trump and his tens of millions of...
Well, I think it's the grab him by the pussy kind of thing, and his Mexicans are rapists and stuff that upset people or whatever, and the fact that he was a feckless loser and his show was failing, and that he ran basically as a publicity stunt, and he won because the Republicans are basically a Trojan horse for nonsense.
...of supporters. The Democrat Party aligned with its surrogates in the media, academia, and the bureaucratic leviathan.
Yeah, but, can I interrupt you? Who put this line on his face? This orange line right here? This situation where his face is kind of... Look at his palm. Look at the side of his hand. Look at the back of his neck. And his ear. And, Mark, I'll let you continue in a second. But, what is this? Seriously. Did he just, like, slam his face into a bag of Cheetos?
And colluded to discredit and cripple Trump's presidency and destroy him
well, he did plenty himself.
Personally, by unleashing an onslaught of slanders, conspiracy theories, criminal and congressional investigations, impeachments, and coup attempts. The likes of which...
Coup attempts? Oh, you mean actually having a legal proceeding wherein they impeached him twice legally, and he had due process. That was bad. Basically the same thing as people charging in the middle of the night with guns.
Which this nation has never...
I mean, basically Trump and the president of Haiti. What's the difference?
...experienced. The unremitting, harmonized, and ferocious blitz.
Well, we do harmonize.
Quite a bit of Democrats can do what we want together. We're gonna build back better, just to annoy Mark Levin.
All right. It's a dick move, honestly.
Was aimed not only at the former president, but his followers and voters.
More orange again. This is kind of this is more sunlight picking up some of it, but that's kind of weird. And then the '57 Chevy thing with this was always wet. It's like the toilets in public bathrooms when Dane Cook would talk about them. Why is everything wet?
Their purpose was to break the back and spirit of the political opposition and clear the field of obstacles to power and governance.
Well, Trump's dancing did that. I mean, look at this.
Indeed,
there's a reason why you're not playing moving footage.
The Democratic Party continues to pursue now private citizen Trump.
I think we can get 1,000 likes over time.
Having gained access to his tax returns for the offices of elected Democratic officials. Now, the campaign to delegitimize and marginalize the Democrat Party's political opposition is further evidenced by Biden's reckless racial rhetoric.
Horrible.
And accusing Republicans in Georgia and now other states of instituting Jim Crow laws.
Just update the book as we go. This is the abridged version.
To prevent black citizens from voting. A contemptible lie intended to upset minorities and turn them against the Republican Party.
Well, obviously they're thinking, intelligent beings, and if the Democrats said something about the Republican parties and these upset minorities looked into it at all and found out that what the Democrats were saying about the Republican Party wasn't true, effectively that would turn them to the Republican Party, perhaps. Yeah.
Although weaponizing race is not new to the Democratic Party, given its historic pedigree from supporting slavery to segregation. And
Well, yeah, until
Biden's vocal and
the Dixiecrats became Republicans.
active opposition to integration early in his Senate career, it is shocking to witness this grotesque rebirth as a political tool. The Democrat Party seeks to empower itself by
By the way, black and white pictures of Joe Biden are there to make you think that he hates black people. I think.
breaching constitutional firewalls, skirting, if not eradicating, rules, traditions, and customs, adopting Marxist language of class warfare and aligning with certain avowedly Marxist groups and ideological causes,
He means Black Lives Matter.
among other things.
By the way, the Marxists in Black Lives Matter, the main one had to step down because she bought $2 million in houses with some of her Black Lives Matter money. And one would think wherever she was trained, quote, to be a Marxist, because she was, quote, a trained Marxist. I mean, did Harvey Milk teach at that school?
Moreover, it is using the instrumentalities of the government for its political empowerment and purposes. The truth is that the interests of the Democratic Party come before those of the country, and allegiance to the party is more important than fidelity to the country.
Well, then why are we getting out of Afghanistan?
It holds these characteristics in common with other autocratic and communist parties throughout the world.
Seriously, this asshole is reading his book on the air.
Now, Ted McAllister, a professor of public policy at Pepperdine University, makes a persuasive case that today's so-called ruling class, or elite,
The ruling class of elites,
disdain our country.
they hate America.
Here's what he said in an essay, thus always to bad
Okay.
elites. Today, he says, we have a very different elite than America did as recently as the 1980s in terms of their nature, goals, ambitions, style, and
Cocaine.
ways of exercising power.
Yes, Trump was one of those people in the '80s, and he was full of shit. He wrote, well, had ghostwritten Art of a Deal when the same year he lost more money in New York real estate than anyone in history. That version of 80s elites needed some work.
The deepest fact of our time is that America has a bad elite.
You dirty elite, you silly boy. Look who's the dirty elite.
A mendacious one whose skills, values, goals, tastes, and types of knowledge are hostile to our nation's inherited cultures and plural people.
They mean Jews.
The new elite that has emerged in the last generation or two has no interest in preserving anything but perhaps their own power.
As opposed to what? The people in power in the 80s? The fuck are you talking about?
They lack historical knowledge and vision, which they supplant by or exchange for the powers of transformation and change.
Okay, that's gibberish. But way to fill the book up, Levin.
Intoxicated by the power possible with emerging technologies, inspired by visions that only a deracinated globalist perspective can make attractive.
Yeah, that's the worst. Unattractive, deracinated globalists. I mean, I don't even know why I go to those parties anymore.
This elite thinks of creative destruction as applied to culture. As winners in what they imagine to be a meritocratic struggle, they can see nothing of an inherited world worth preserving for their very
Jesus Christ. Ayn Rand called and said, "Psst, wrap it up."
Success. The peculiar characteristics of the revolving power had given to our new elite the soul of adolescent art applied to global canvas.
Oh yeah, rock and roll. You mean rock and roll going across the world and changing things for the better? After this, I will watch the Moscow Music Peace Festival just to fuck with Marx Levin.
They lack any experiential or historical ballast to weigh them down, to slow them and
Whippersnappers.
making everything according to their desires. For them, streamlining power is key to creation, and the annoying obstacles to their creations are not really checks to prevent.
And by the way, thanks, Mark, for putting the title on the top And also in tiny little letters down at the bottom, so we know what to avoid.
tyranny, but rather
Run him at 78 speed.
limitations, unnecessary friction in the headlong rush to transform. For this new elite, he writes, for instance...
Jesus Christ, you're still reading? Does he read this whole fucking time? No, okay, here he is talking. Okay, stop reading.
Elites. And what he's describing there, wittingly or unwittingly...
Probably by-wittingly.
...is the Marxist mindset.
The Marxist mindset. You mean that I would never want to join a club that would have someone like me as a member? You mean that kind of thing?
Is the Marxist mindset.
No, the Marxist mindset. You're right. You mentioned that.
Now, you've heard this before, and I had it...
Yes, we've heard all of this before, Mark. Yeah.
...at the end of Liberty and Tyranny.
Yeah, obviously, I read it.
When the great Ronald Reagan said words that will go down in history forevermore.
Forevermore.
Freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction.
Right.
We didn't pass it to our children in the bloodstream. It must be fought for, protected, and handed on for them to do the same. Or one day we will spend our sunset years telling our children and our children's children what it was once like in the United States, where men were free. Was it too much to ask these 19 Senate Republicans to vote?
To not keep bridges from collapsing and expanding broadband to the fucking flyover states? The fuck is wrong with you? That's the kind of freedom you're talking about being taken away. That a bunch of bureaucrats, the alleged deep state that supposedly exists, where elites in Washington don't listen to the people and just do what they want and what's best for them so they can line their own pockets and stay in office for as long as possible. The Republicans, heretofore, especially during the Trump years, voted lockstep against anything Democratic until they needed it, and that's what he's freaking out about. But when 60% of Republicans are for something like this infrastructure bill, you would think 60% of the Republicans would vote for it, or every Republican would recognize that 60% of their constituents are for it, and that is representation, and in representing their district, they would go, well, I might not think it's a good idea, but 60% of my constituency that's way over the line. This is not a coin flip. This is a filibuster ending level of polling. I'm going to go and, talk to my people in the district, listen to people, have listings, but they want 60-40. Every Republican in their district, 60% of the people that voted for them are for the infrastructure bill. Now remember, in these same districts, there are also a bunch of Democrats, maybe 45% or even 50% in the places that are close. So 89% statistically of the Democrats are for it. So that's a huge number of your constituents, whether or not they voted for you or not. You represent them. You vied to represent them. Like, nobody wins an election. You get a fucking job. And in a lot of ways, it's a terrible job because you have to represent not just the people who got you there, but everybody else who didn't. That's how you do a good job. So 60% of the Republicans are for something. 89% of the Democrats are for it, and the other 11% who aren't want it to go further. They're not against it. They just think it needs to be more. And you're going to go down to the floor of the Senate and vote no on something that 90% of your constituents overall are for. 83%, whatever the total would be. Right? Representative government would be, look, I may not like it, but this is clearly what my constituents want. And I am their representative in a representative government. An out-of-touch Washington elite would look at those numbers and go, fuck it, I'm voting no, because it's a party thing. We're all voting together. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if it's good for my people or what my people want. I'm voting with this guy. The guy I know in Washington. The guy I only know from Washington. I'm voting wherever my leader tells me to do, whether or not my people want it. That would be, what they decry as the deep state. That would be what they decry as some sort of, power elite that's, is disenfranchising the people and has removed themselves and put themselves above everybody else. And that would be freedom taken away from their constituents. That would be a situation where the people of that district, who are overwhelmingly in support of the infrastructure bill, for example, don't get it, don't get to have it, because their representative is not voting the way the people that voted them in and the people that are in their district that didn't vote for them, because they are represented, they represent both, the whole district. They're not doing what those people would want. Even when it's a majority of their own party, they're doing what someone in Washington tells them to do. That's fucking amazing. And the fact that they gap that as intellectually, they just seem to like ride right past that is amazing. I mean, not with, Marx Levin, he's a dipshit, but
Vote the right way. We didn't ask them to fight the British Crown. We didn't ask them to put their wealth on the line.
well, no, but they're voting the way their district wants.
We asked them to vote the right way.
They did.
Instead, they sold us out.
Sold us? Who's us? You're not in their district. You're not in their state. Your bridges aren't falling down, or maybe they are, but you just don't give a fuck.
Do they not understand what's swirling around in this country? That our very liberties, our form of government, our
Are swirling?
economic system,
Oh my God. Liberty. Lady Liberty has gotten a chocolate swirly. That's terrible.
our sovereignty are all at stake?
Are they? Because we want to fix bridges and give broadband to fucking Iowa?
What is with these people?
Ah, what's the deal? What is the deal with Mark's head?
They fight like hell because they want to govern, and then they don't govern. They capitulate.
Well, they are actually.
They sell out. These are the McConnell Republicans. This is a disaster.
Well, for you, yeah. It's not for the people who live in their states who are going to get, they drive across those bridges. They ride on those roads. They know that soft shoulder gives way sometimes. They look at the buildings in fucking Haiti and the shit downstream from the reservoirs in China, and they're like, yeah, I'd rather that not happen here.
That infrastructure bill laid way for what is now a massive transformation of America that will make the FDR New Deal look like a walk in the park.
Well, now you're threatening me with a good time.
And they do it with 50 Democrat senators, with a majority of 4 to 5 votes in the House of Representatives, with no mandate whatsoever, with no
Well,
input.
the president who's guiding the whole thing won by the biggest margin of any president and the most votes in history. He straight up stomped your dude.
From the American people with no committee hearings at all.
They have committee meetings on. What do you mean with no committee meetings? What the fuck is he talking about? What do you think took so long?
Yes, we were freer before the American Revolution.
Yes, you were freer to die of dysentery. Yes, we were freer on the Oregon Trail. We were freer as members of the Donner Party.
Than we are.
We were so much freer when Ted Bundy was going across this country killing people before we had VICAP and the federal fingerprint system. You know what I mean? We were way freer. You could I don't know, Mark, in deference to you, you could sexually assault someone in Iowa, drive across the border, and then give a fake name if you got picked up peeping in somebody's window. They'd never connect you to that rape in Iowa, would they? But now they've got a fingerprint system like, hey, fucko, they're looking for you in Cedar Rapids.
Today.
I don't even know. What is that? I guess we should take it as a good sign. Hold on one second. I think I have to open this part of it up. Hello, check, check, 1, check 2. There it is. I suppose we should take it as a good sign that the Republicans, and largely, I think, in terms of the Afghanistan withdrawal, the media itself is having a real hard time getting a really strong toehold on any of these arguments against Biden. Specifically, when it comes to the infrastructure bill, it's a losing fight for everybody if they're against it. I mean, you can argue about the 3.5 bill, but the 1.1, it's bipartisan. It's full of shit that everybody needs. It's ridiculous. So, we need to shore up our country. The Republican, defense structure, their strategy for the country, the defense strategy, is to make the country so shitty no one would want to invade. Why would I want to invade them? All their bridges are falling down. Nobody looks at their buildings to make sure the foundations are strong. Shit like that. My eyes look huge after looking at Don Jr. Well, I've never done drugs, so yeah. Nicole Wallace did a surprisingly good critique of the media and their attacks on Biden. Yeah, she went in on some of this stuff yesterday, and then I could see her backing away from it on her own, because she was rolling into the coverage from the shows before, and the producers were doing the same whisper in the ear, and she was going, you could see her doing it. So, anyways, the point I'm trying to make is that the Republicans themselves, for a long time, have just been, they've been treating this country like they're renters, not like they have a mortgage. And so everything, they just want their, they want a tax cut because they want their security deposit back, and they're going to fuck off and hide that money in the Caymans, and any damage they did, they'll just, those holes in the wall from nails when you did posters, and they wanted you to paint over them, but you fill them with toothpaste, because by the time they recognize it, you've already gotten your security deposit back, that old apartment trick. They do that shit all the time, because they really don't care about this place. America's a springboard for this magical life that they think they are owed. Meanwhile, you got Marjorie Taylor Greene, like we looked at today, clamoring about the Green New fucking Deal, because lithium in Afghanistan, just the most nonsensical argument, instead of going, we need a scientific solution to this. In the same way that in terms of climate change, when the reports kept coming out that we may be at a tipping point, blah, 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 about climate change itself, which is, I don't know, if the tipping point was 50 years away, we would start working on it now. That would be the logical thing. Just start moving away as best we can without creating another problem in the process. Hence the lithium-ion batteries and needing to get away from them. But the idea that we should be able to solve this problem either through technological advancements where we're no longer using fossil fuels everywhere that we don't need them. Like, we use them for factories and we use them for airplanes, but we don't need to use them for any consumer vehicles for sure. And if you have a specialty vehicle that requires long distance stuff, and that's just something you have, and it's a temperature issue and blah blah blah, then that's when you use diesel, and it makes total sense. And everybody knows that. That's why Biden set a target of 50% of the vehicles sold in the United States should be, could be, hopefully will be, want to be electric. 50%. 50%. Hopefully that number's better. You meet that target, you exceed it. And again, if you run out of gas in the middle of nowhere, and you don't find any, you're done. If you're in a electric car on a long trip and you bring a couple of solar panels with you, in a day, if you're really stuck, in theory, you could charge your car enough to drive a long way. It gives you more freedom than you would have if you had to rely on finding a dead dinosaur and squeezing any energy out of it. Like, that part of it boggles my mind, that people can't recognize that. Go watch The Martian and how he powers his ATV that he drives, from one site to another, because it's such a long distance. He has to stop and nap and use the solar panels to charge the car, and then he folds them up, and then he goes a little further. Yeah, you can power your house from a new Ford electric truck. Exactly. Like, that's fucking cool. I don't know why we're fighting this stuff. When one of the reasons why we didn't want to be involved in Afghanistan and no more wars for oil and that shit is because we don't want to be reliant on that. We want to be energy independent. Well, one of the ways we do that is by consumer vehicles not needing gas anymore. I'm amazed that they're not actually for this, and it just shows that they're just against it because it's seen as a Democrat thing or a hippie thing or a, peacenik environmental thing, and they just you can't give any ground. So I'm curious, as far as the Afghanistan thing, like I said, We will see how this pans out, and I don't know the timeline. Usually my predictions are based on some stuff that I've actually seen or stories around that stuff. This is just a gut feeling that by the end of the year or January, we're going to start talking. You're going to see the Biden administration talking about the end of Guantanamo, and the conversation about that will sound a lot like the conversation about Afghanistan, and they will forget all about this. And they're going to play some video of people leaving on helicopters and people hanging on the bottom of the thing for like ads against Biden in 2024, and nobody's going to give a fuck. No one. Even the right's going to go, oh, look, actually, I'm kind of for it. So, yeah, same as they treated Obama, exactly. It's just, if he's for it, they're against it. And it's odd to me, and I love Red Barchetta by Rush as much as the next person, but there's more freedom in electric cars if you have access to solar panels or a wind turbine someplace or a charging station than there is with oil or gas. Because once you're out of oil or gas, it's fucking gone. Sunlight is forever.